Inclusive Recruitment Toolkit video series. Part 4. Welcoming your new hire into an inclusive environment. We asked representatives from lived experience organisations in Cornwall for their opinion on inclusive recruitment. In this 5-part interview series, we explore topics like attracting diverse candidates, how to make job interviews more inclusive, and much more. What adjustments or requests should happen before you start a new job to make sure you are supported from day one?
So if I were starting a new job, before I started, the employer should communicate with all staff to explain that there's a deaf person about to start work. And they might say about me, for example, that, okay, Terence is starting, he's got good English skills, but communicate with him face to face, talk slowly, don't mumble, don't look away whilst you're talking to Terence. Make the deaf person feel welcome without being patronising. Make sure that the deaf person is included with every decision.
Having reasonable adjustments around my religious or ethnic needs is really, really important. I think offering and making sure that I'm aware of ways to report or feedback if I am experiencing any kind of racial discrimination or any kind of racialised conversations that I'm not comfortable with. It's always really nice if you know you can speak about what you're struggling with and be believed and feel heard, and that there'll be action taken. So it's really important to have that in place to make me feel safe walking in. It's always really good to know that the team receive regular trainings, and I would include myself in that, have to take part in that.
For me and a lot of my colleagues, and for our learning disabled young people, everybody in the building that you're likely to come across, having a badge that says, "Hello, my name is." Such an easy thing so that everybody knows that your name is Izzy, your name is Sandy. And most of our young people are readers, and they will understand that their receptive language is better than their given language. So they will understand those names, and that it's such a friendly thing. Hello, my name is. I'd love for everybody to be doing that every time they meet somebody new.
With the language, being able to use Makaton, a few signs of Makaton, doesn't have to be a vast array of signs, it's just the basics. Hello, my name is, or that's really good, and how are you? Just stuff so that you've got a very basic understanding of Makaton. That can make somebody with a learning disability and a communication need to feel so much more relaxed. So people that work for our charity are parents and have a knowledge of Makaton, and that's really important. So the people who offer our activities can communicate with Makaton, because that's really important. So that's something that we'd be looking for any member of staff that came to us.
Yeah, and actually before the person starts on their first day, it may be a good idea for the team to be told about how our young person communicates. I would tell a team, he uses the end of words, so you need to be a little bit imaginative. When he says "lut," Matthew wants to go to the toilet, and that's the way that he communicates. And as you get to know him better, I make promises to people that as you get to know my son better and you become a familiar adult to him, you will understand his speech, which sometimes when he's anxious hasn't got great clarity, but when he's motivated you can understand everything that he wants, particularly if it's food.
I think based on my experience and kind of from a trauma element, I've had real challenges in particular workspaces that are very masculine orientated and heavy on the very unconsensual, uncomfortable, often sexualised banter. Get rid of it. When I walk into an organisation, and others from a safety perspective, banters can be okay as long as it's consented. But it's also really important, so self-deprecation can be a sign of real challenges. It's also really important to ask someone if they are self-deprecating, that are they okay? Yeah, I think when I'm coming into an organisation and when the community's coming into the organisation, everyone's living those values. There is a safe place and there's questions and it's open and it's honest.
Is there anything else you think companies could do to make everyone feel welcome in their new role?
For everyone to connect with your organisation from a recruitment perspective, from a values perspective, from a well-being perspective, is if you want to do something, go and do it. Do you know what? If you make a mistake, that's okay. Because if you didn't make the mistake, you wouldn't learn from it to go and off and do something else. So many organisations are so risk averse that they don't go off to do the exciting thing. If you can, it welcomes more people because we're all human. Being open and honest and transparent about actually really would like to do this, I've gone to do it, I've spoken to other people, I've got it wrong, you hold your hands up. That wasn't the plan. And that welcomes more conversation, that builds more honesty in what is going on.
Maybe they could set up a training course before a deaf person started work, or perhaps maybe an employer could ask me to give some deaf awareness training, some basic British Sign Language training, to make other staff aware, and aware of things like, if I'm working in an office, I can't use a telephone, you know, not to ask a deaf person to make a phone call. Maybe other members of staff might need to make a telephone call for me and then explain to me what happened in the conversation. It would be a good idea to provide equipment such as a minicom or web chat for communicating with someone in different departments. I know that a lot of firms now use these screens as barriers in offices, and that can be very difficult for a deaf person because communication, conversation, laughter can happen across the office. A deaf person wouldn't be aware of that at all. A deaf person would have to stand up to look over a screen. It's not being nosy, it's just otherwise the deaf person could feel really left out, and that might make them feel angry or embarrassed. Removing screens in the workplace could have an advantage for a deaf person.
I think that the most important thing for companies to do is to be very clear about job descriptions, job roles, transparent with the way that they practice and their policies, and make that accessible to all the staff. Make sure that staff know that there is a safe and open route for them to report if they need to or to gain extra support. Make sure that there's been an open conversation around reasonable adjustments before start dates and hopefully, you know, at the end of an interview or during an interview. I also think timeline for interview, people coming back to you in a timely fashion and acknowledging that you've been to the interview and maybe expressing that previous to, you know, to the interview process. Say, you know, this is when we'll interview you, you'll expect to hear from us in a week's time when the job starts X, Y, Z, so that people can adjust their lives around that and make the plans that they need to make. And that goes back to, you know, affordability for a lot of people. I think that training is really important. So I would expect if you're looking to hire diversity that you've prepared your organisation to welcome and to support diversity. If you need to do anti-racism training, if you need to do inclusivity training or anti-bias training, that should have been done before you bring people into the organisation and not as an afterthought to make sure that they're now okay.
Learning about that particular syndrome that a person has, you know, you're not going to learn everything, and being accepting of that you are on a learning journey about that person and about that particular disability that they have, and making sure that you are kept up to date with the celebrations, for example with World Down Syndrome Day or any changes in legislation, all that kind of stuff. Just make sure that you're kept up to date with that. That would be really welcoming for Matthew to go into employment.
Yeah, and being aware of your own unconscious bias towards somebody with a learning disability, because I can assure you you will be proved wrong. Our young people have so much to offer and really improve the lives of the people that are surrounded by them, and it would be lovely for more people to have that experience.
Our young people bring a smile to the faces of people that they meet. I know that Waitrose in Truro told me that if Matthew brought the smile to one customer's face that day, then he had done his job, and he brought a smile to lots of people's faces, especially when he was asked if the cheese he was demonstrating was nice, and he said, no, it's yuck.
This video was produced by Discover Voices, part of Disability Cornwall and Isles of Scilly. To check out all of our content, simply search Discover Voices on YouTube.